Hi there, I'm Jen, this is Remembered Reads, and this is going to be the Wishful Thinking book tag. I was tagged by Leo Bancroft, who has a thing of promoting a different charity with each video, which is a great idea, and this tag was created by Mason in the Dark. I will link to both of those videos below. Question number 1 is legacy. Is there an author you wish was still alive today to witness the impact of their work? I don't know, I always feel like it's creepy to think about who you bring back from the dead. However, just because of the sheer number of other books I see that have references to either the poetry of Rupert Brooke or Wilfred Owen, I would say them, because they were both killed in the First World War, and I think it would have been interesting to, have the seance and say, what do you think about all these references? Especially because they're usually shown as contrasting each other, because one of them is the pity of war, which is a quote in itself, and the other one is, yay, yay, nationalism, but mostly because he died earlier in the war, so he didn't get to the cynical point. But yeah, war poets. Number 2 is memory wipe. Which book or series do you wish you could forget so that you could experience it again for the first time? That's tough, because I feel like anytime you read something, it's tied not just to reading it for the first time, but for the moment in which you read it. But I think one of the books that kind of grabbed me when I first read it, in a way that very few things have, was definitely Robertson Davis's Fifth Business, which is just amazing in both the way it plays with language and the way it plays with social mores and social ideas. And I think it was probably one of the first serious quote-unquote books that I had read that is set in Toronto, which I liked. It is in a lot of ways one of the, and I mean, especially considering the generation and everything in which it was written, is one of the least cliched portraits of disability that, of almost, even now you don't read books that are so allowing people to be people without making them be symbols, which I think is really brilliant. So, and genuinely, when I read that book, it blew me away on so many different levels. And I don't know, and I think the thing is, if I were reading it again now, because I read it for the first time when I was, 18 or 19, I don't know that I would have the same reaction just because I'm at a different place in my life, but it was a great experience reading that. Question number 3 is destiny. Which character do you wish had a different fate? And I feel like this begs a kind of genre answer a series question. So I'm going to say the original Union Jack from The Invaders from Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics brings back everyone. Nobody stays dead. For some reason, the James Falsworth version of Union Jack has stayed dead. There are other versions of Union Jack who have the same code name, but they're not the same person. And it baffles me. Like, why is he the one that stays dead? Bring him back. So that is my weird answer. Question number 4 is namesake. If a character was going to be named after you, what kind of person would you wish for them to be, and what kind of story would you want them to be in? And my question would be, how much of a name? Are we going first name, nickname, surname? I don't know. I have a very unusual surname, so I do not want any characters to have that name, because people would Google me. Like, genuinely, my mother, my sister, and I are the only people in Canada with our surname. I used to work in directory assistance, so I actually know that that's true. That's how unusual our surname is in this country, and even globally. You go on, forebears.io, we have a really unusual name. So no, I don't want characters named after me, because it would be weird. Unless it's by nickname, because there are so many Jens. Who cares? Question number 5 is collectibles. Which fictional object do you wish you could own? You know the flying unicorns in A Swiftly Tilting Planet, the third book, one of the sequels to A Wrinkle in Time? It would be fun to have a flying unicorn that can take you through space and time, because the flying unicorn does that. It's like a TARDIS, except it's a unicorn. So there you go. That's not an object, that's an animal, but I'm going to go with that. Number 6 is the reset button. Which book or series do you wish was written by a different author? I think I've told the story before, but years ago when I was on a South African kick, I read Dan Sley's Eilande, which is a 800-page Afrikaans novel, and before you say, Jen, do you speak Afrikaans? No, I don't, but it's close enough to Dutch and English that, like, if you speak Dutch and English, and especially German, because the spelling is more similar to German. Anyway, if you speak those 3 languages at any level, you can learn to read Afrikaans in a weekend, more or less. So I read that book, and I thought, this is not that good, but Andre Brink would write a good version of this, because it's about essentially this family that's a Danish guy who's working for the Dutch East India Company, and he marries a Khoisan woman, and about their children and whatnot, which is the kind of thing that Andre Brink wrote too. Andre Brink wrote the English translation of that, and I read that, and it was very entertaining, or more entertaining than I had reading the book that was in a language that I don't actually speak. So there could be more than one thing going on with that. I have never, before I saw Leo do this video, I had never seen anyone do this tag before. So I'm going to tag the 2 last people who tagged me in something, who are Jim from Jim's books, reading and stuff, and Scott and Nell from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. So there we go. And anybody else who is watching this and would like to be tagged. All right, that's it for now. Ciao.